Hello and welcome to FPL Bob. I'm Hussein, your number one guy for FPL content throughout the 2022-2023 season. Today I'm going to bring something back. I'm going to look at your teams and give my view on them. But before we get into that, please go down and hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss a future upload. Starting off with Team 1. As I can see here, your team looks quite good. But as you told me, you've already played the wildcard. And as the keeper choice, you chose to go with Dean Henderson. He is a great keeper, especially when it comes to penalties. He's a penalty specialist. But the Nottingham defense honestly looks one of the worst this season, even worse than Bournemouth in my opinion. He doesn't look like he is going to give you any clean sheet points anytime soon, and if I were you, and if I had a luxury transfer, meaning that a transfer that I don't have to necessarily use on something else, then I would look at going for another keeper instead of him. For goalkeepers, as I said in my previous video, I would target teams that concede a lot of shots outside the box, so they are easier shots to save, as well as the teams that, of course, are very good defensively and keep many clean sheets. With these two things in mind, I have only two keeper options that could fit in that description. One of them being Newcastle, with their keeper being Pope, and the other one being Brighton, with their keeper being Sanchez. Both these keepers are very good options. I personally, on my wildcard, I went for Nick Pope over Robert Sanchez. You could go back and watch that video in one of the places here above. I'll put the link up there. So these two would be the main options when it comes to keepers. Secondly, you also told me that you took a -4 hit just 1 week after you played your wildcard. So you've already took a -4 hit to bring in Rashford and Paqueta for Zaha and Morgan Gibbs-White. Now personally, I don't know why you did that. You probably had a knee-jerk transfer where you thought Rashford was a really good option considering how he played the last game. And with Zaha blanking, you thought it would be the right option to change from Zaha to Rashford as they face each other. For Gibbs-White, I personally don't know why you went with Paqueta. Paqueta hasn't yet proved in the Premier League. He doesn't look that attacking compared to Gibbs-White, especially given their fixtures coming up. Gibbs-White does, in my opinion, look the greater option over the coming few game weeks. And if you did not like Gibbs-White as an option, I do see your bench and I see that you could replace Morgan Gibbs-White with any of your bench options, to be honest. Your bench looks quite strong and that's good this early on, where there will be a lot of rotations, so your bench needs to cover up your starting 11. Also, personally, if you're playing a wildcard, you should look 4 weeks ahead so that you don't have to make any negative transfers in those 4 weeks. Unless you have any injury problems, which in your team wasn't the case, so I think it was a bad decision to go for Rashford and Paqueta for a -4 hit, especially for your Zaha and Morgan Gibbs-White. So that, in my opinion, was a bad option from you. However, if you're looking for another player who you're looking to take out, myself included, I'm looking at this transfer move. I'm looking to take Jesus out. Now you must be thinking 80% owned, looks quite good for Arsenal. Why would you take him out? I'm more of a fixture-oriented manager when it comes to fantasy, and I look at fixtures over form. Now Jesus' form might as well be decent, however his fixtures coming up do not look the greatest. I would advise to move on from the double Arsenal attack, as I feel it's not that great of an option, especially with Arsenal's fixtures coming up. So thus, between Jesus and Martinelli, I chose to remove Jesus. The reason being that Martinelli does look quite good in the counter, as you saw in the previous game against United. So Martinelli looks the highest up the pitch and the one with the most goal threat in those counter attacks. So Martinelli for me would be the better option over Jesus to keep in your team. Now if you were to remove Jesus, who would you go for? Personally, I think Kane would be a good option considering the fixtures coming up. He faces Leicester and Arsenal over the next 3 game weeks. However, if you do not want to go for Kane or you don't have enough funds to go to do that transfer, I would suggest Darwin Núñez from Liverpool. As I see, you have no Liverpool attackers, which I feel like being the top 3 teams for XG in the Prem, and with Núñez's goal threat and his ability to score in front of goal, I think Núñez would do good for Liverpool and for your FPL team if you own him. So these are the 2 transfers I would suggest if you would be wanting to go for a transfer in the next few game weeks. So yeah, this is the team review for you. Next up is Team 2. Personally, I haven't seen a team quite like this before. Doesn't have a premium attacker, no Haaland, no Kane. It has Son in midfield, who has looked quite bad this season. And a very weak bench, none of them could play, so none of them could come up for your team if needed, just like the last team that we looked at. It's just everything is wrong with it at the moment. And if I would be Ragnick, I would probably say the wise words, this isn't cosmetic, it needs open heart surgery. And of course in FPL terms, open heart surgery means a wildcard being played for this case. So I would suggest you should go for the wildcard in this scenario. So I have put up a wildcard team for you to look into. First off, for keepers, as I said previously as well, and in my wildcard video, that Pope and Sanchez should really be your only options at the moment. Personally, I have put Pope for you in your wildcard draft, but you could go for Sanchez if you don't have the funds for affording Pope. Next up, for the defenders. Now, a tip for all of you: if you're looking at good defenders for FPL, you should firstly look at wingbacks / fullbacks who are very attacking and that play for a very attacking team. Secondly, you should look at any defense that is quite good and can keep a lot of clean sheets and have less expected goal conceded. And thirdly, you should look at a combination of the previous 2 points that I just mentioned, and that have wingbacks that are quite far forward for their team in attack, as well as that team being quite good defensively itself. So with those 3 things being in mind, I have chosen a few teams that I feel like have wingbacks and are quite good defensively too. My choice of teams for these players are Newcastle, Manchester City, Liverpool, Brighton, Chelsea, even though they're not quite good in defense at the moment. But I do like their team, especially when it comes to their attack from the wings, from the wingbacks. So their attack looks quite solid and looks to be concentrated towards the wingbacks. So I would also put Chelsea in mind for that. From Liverpool, I see Trent as the only viable option. He ranks top for key passes and big chances created amongst all defenders in the Premier League. The other options would be Robertson, who has not quite looked quite good in attack this season. His underlying stats are poor. As for City, you could opt for the fullback route with Cancelo. Personally, I do not think he's worth the 7 million as he was last season because of his weak underlying stats in attack, just like Robertson. He doesn't look quite as par as what he was last season. However, with his ownership as well being quite high, and the occasional strike he has outside the box, and also that he is the most nailed in the Man City side, he doesn't look quite as bad as Robertson when it comes to the 7 million defenders. He would be a decent pick as well. However, personally, I did go for Stones in my pick, in my draft. However, it looks like Ake is back and Stones might get shifted to the bench again. So if you want to go for City's defense for clean sheets, as their wingbacks, as their fullbacks are not quite attacking this season compared to last, I would probably go for Diaz for 1 million cheaper, or even a cheaper option would be Kyle Walker. Walker is a bit of rotation risk with Sergio Gomez coming in, but yeah, Cancelo is the most nailed, followed by Diaz, followed by Walker as the least nailed probably of the 3. So you could shift to those 2 if you want. For Newcastle, I really like Trippier. His 11 key passes rank 2nd amongst all defenders, just behind Trent, and of course he has the free kick prowess, so he could end up with a few goals this season as well. Now lastly, for Chelsea, I only see 2 options here. One is a more nailed option in Reece James. I mean, I don't have much to say about him apart from the fact that he ranks 2nd for expected goal involvement for the whole Chelsea side, including their attackers. He's just behind Sterling in that department. Second is a more punty and more rotation risk choice with Chilwell. He is priced cheaper than James, and it may be due to the fact that he is more rotation risk, as they have Cucurella as well in that same position. He looks more explosive in attack compared to Reece James and could have a bigger haul in 1 week than James. So if you're looking for that kind of player, Chilwell could be your option if you want to take the risk of rotation yourself. And I feel like with Chelsea's defense being so bad up to now, it could improve with Fofana coming in. Of course, we saw the previous game that did again look quite weak, but they may get used to that style of play in the next few games, and probably their defense will be a lot better than what it was before. And lastly, for the budget enabler, I've gone for Nico Williams for your team. He's a good cheap option, just 4.1 million, and he ranks top amongst all defenders in the Premier League for expected goal involvement, even above the top dogs in Trent and Reece James. And he has a few good fixtures coming from now, so he would be very good, especially considering he's just 4.1 million. He could be a very good option off the bench if you need. Moving on to the midfielders, let's start it off with the obvious picks. First of Martinelli. As I said for the previous team as well, he looks the most explosive in that Arsenal side, being the highest up the pitch and most likely to score from any counter attacks. So Martinelli would still be in your draft, in my opinion. Next up is Gross. he does look like he's in his best form, and also this was said by their manager Graham Potter himself. But so long as it seems to continue, he looks quite good for the 6 million mark. Of course, his price rised from 5.5 to 6 now throughout the season, so he is a bit more expensive than he was in the start of the season. However, if you had the extra budget, I personally would go for Trossard when he plays in the left wing back position, which I don't think he would be playing that often with Estupiñán coming in. Even when he plays in the left wing back position, he does look quite attacking. But if Estupiñán starts, he does play in the Lallana role, that is almost like a cam position. And Trossard is quite good when it comes to attacking positions, so he could do damage to the opposition goal when he starts in either of those positions. So if you had the extra 0.5 million, I would advise you go for him over Gross. Next up, like Nico Williams, a budget enabler, a good pick off the bench is Andreas Pereira for Fulham. He does look to be taking all the set pieces and the corners for Fulham, and Fulham being very great in heading the ball. Pereira looks like he could rack up a few assists here and there throughout the season. And of course, priced only at 4.6 million, he looks like probably the best bench option you could get. Now, you had Salah and Son before. I have replaced them to Rashford and Bowen. As I said before, I am a fixture-oriented manager, where if the fixtures are good, I do go for those players over the form players. And for me, West Ham do look like they have quite a good fixture run. And with how Bowen was playing last season, if he could get anywhere near that kind of form from now up to the World Cup break, he could be in business for your FPL team. So Bowen would be my first pick to go for, as he is quite a differential as well. Secondly, I went for Rashford. Now, as I said before, he does look a quite good option, and if he is nailed on in the number 9 position for United, who have also been in form, and with the fixtures being quite decent, he could be a quite good option for your FPL team. Finally, onto the forward line. I've gone big up front, spending almost everything on Kane and Haaland. First, I'm going to talk about Haaland. I don't have to say much about him, apart from he is the top point scorer in the Premier League up to now this season. Already 10 goals in 6 games. And he is probably the best asset to own in the game at the moment. He is also writing off all the rotation risks that people put on him in the start of the season. And if he goes on with this form, he could end up with 40 goals and probably with the highest points ever in a season for FPL. Secondly is Kane. As you can see after the City game, he faces Leicester and Arsenal, which are supposedly also his 2 favorite opponents to face. After a whopping 39 goal involvements in just 35 games against the two, he does look like he could punish those two, especially with Leicester's defense being quite bad up to now. Also, after those 2 fixtures, his fixture run does also look quite good up to the World Cup break, where you have unlimited transfers. So I think at the moment, also another tip, you should be targeting players who are good up to the World Cup break, as then you will have like a free wildcard. So if you're looking to wildcard right now, you should be targeting players who will possibly do good and have good fixtures up to the World Cup break. So Kane was my second option. The last spot goes to someone who I have changed my views on personally, Mitrovic. In the start, I thought he was just going through a purple patch and would go back to being the normal Mitrovic that we know, scoring probably 1 goal every 5 games. However, he has proved to not be that. He seems to be scoring against probably every opposition in the league up to now. And if he continues to do this, he could be the best sub 8 million forward in the Premier League this season. With the damage he has caused to the top teams in the league, I cannot imagine personally what he would do to the smaller teams in the league. His aerial threat looks second to none, and with Andreas Pereira and his ability to pick out the pass, I feel like Mitrovic could thrive in that department for Fulham. And this season he could probably end up with around 15 to 20 goals if he continues his form. So Mitrovic would be my last pick for a wildcard. And of course, he's a fixture-proof player, so you could probably play him against every team out there. Next game is against Chelsea. Chelsea look quite poor in defense, so you could probably also keep him in your starting 11 for this week as well. So this is your wildcard team. In my opinion, the best wildcard team to own up to probably the World Cup. You could have a few transfers, of course, here and there, depending on form or stuff. But this is the wildcard template I would look at for you. Lastly, moving on to Team 3. This looks the best team in my opinion, of course, having Tony, and congratulations for having that hat-trick. Personally did not celebrate that moment quite well. As you told me, you do have the wildcard still to play, and you have 2 free transfers for the next game week. Personally, I would be looking I will be looking at a Game Week 8/Game Week 9 wildcard for you. So you will be having 3 more game weeks until that time. So for that, I would recommend you a few punt picks, like a few risky, low owned differential picks, who I think would do quite well in the next few game weeks. First up to leave your team, in my opinion, will be Mohamed Salah. He hasn't looked the same since last season. He does look quite wide in position, so also his positioning has been brought a bit wider, and with Nunes coming in, I really feel that would impact the goal contribution that Salah would have this season. So first up for you, I would be looking at removing Salah, as I am planning to do myself in the next few game weeks, so look out for that. Now for his replacements, I would rather go for Sterling or a Rashford for the next 2 or 3 game weeks, as you will be looking to wildcard in game week 8 or 9. Sterling looks to be a good option for the next 3 game weeks, as he would be the main talisman for Chelsea, with Aubameyang still being out with a broken jaw. Once Aubameyang comes in, however, I would imagine Sterling's goal threat would reduce. So in the next 3 game weeks, I feel this would be the best you could get out of Sterling for probably the whole season. Second option was Rashford, as I said before, quite an informed player who has decent fixtures up to game week 9, where I would imagine against you again that you wildcard. He could be a good differential, especially given that he starts as a number 9 for Manchester United, who have looked quite good in attack over the last 4 game weeks. Alongside that move where you are removing Salah, where he is your only Liverpool attacker, I would suggest you switch to another attacker for Liverpool, in my opinion a better choice as well, in Darwin Núñez. Liverpool are still ranked top 3 for XG in the Premier League, and with Núñez being their out and out number 9, I feel he would get most of the chances this season. Of course, not to mention he has had 7 expected goal involvements in about 180 minutes of football, so he looks quite good in that department as well. My second choice is the one that I went for personally in my wildcard draft, was Isak. He does look good for the Newcastle attack, racking up 3 big chances in 2 games. Not to mention this is without Saint-Maximin, and once he returns I would expect that number to go a lot higher, as Saint-Maximin provides a lot more attacking options for the Newcastle side. So these are the 2 transfers I would suggest to you up to game week 9, where you would play your wildcard. First one being, of course, Salah to either Rashford or Sterling. Second one being Jesus to Darwin or Isak. And with that being said, guys, this is the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like and subscribe and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss a future upload, and until next time.